Have you ever had those moments where you're doing everything you're supposed to do, and yet it still feels like you're not where you're meant to be? You show up every day, you check the boxes, you hustle, you push, you stay late, you strategize, but deep down, something in you whispers that you're still behind. It's frustrating because you're not lazy, you're not unfocused, you're not wasting time. You're trying hard, and somehow it still feels like life is keeping you a few steps away from the version of yourself you know you're capable of becoming. Most people think the solution is more work, more effort, more hours, more grind. And for a long time I believed that too. If something wasn't working, my default answer was simple: push harder, outwork it, outthink it, outsuffer it. That mindset helped me build a portfolio of businesses worth more than $40 million, but it also nearly broke me. Because somewhere along the way, I realized something that completely flipped my philosophy about success. The hustle wasn't helping me. It was hurting me. When I say that, people often look at me confused, like, so what am I supposed to just sit around and visualize my dream life into existence? And no, that's not what I'm suggesting. I'm not telling you to stop taking action or stop caring. What I discovered is that there's an entirely different way to create success, healthier, smarter, more powerful, and it doesn't come from grinding your soul into dust. It comes from learning how to collaborate with reality rather than constantly trying to overpower it. You've probably heard the phrase, do less doing and more being. And if you're like me, the first time you heard that, you probably rolled your eyes. Sounds like a quote printed on a mug at some yoga retreat, right? Something that sounds poetic in theory, but completely useless when you've got bills to pay, deadlines to meet, a team that depends on you, or a launch coming up in 2 months. But as cheesy as it sounds, there's a deep truth hidden inside that idea, a truth I completely ignored for years. The difference between doing and being is not philosophical fluff. It is the mechanism that determines whether your actions move the needle or drain your life. Doing is easy to understand. Doing is writing the email, taking the call, finishing the project, driving the kids to school, paying the bills, running errands, showing up for your job, making the sale, fixing the issue, putting out the fire. Doing is everything you can point to. Being is different. Being is your internal climate, your emotional and mental state on a daily basis. It's your thoughts, your feelings, your attitude, your energy, your internal narrative, your sense of safety or fear. Some people call it your consciousness, your spirit, your vibe, whatever word you prefer. But regardless of the language, the truth is simple. Being is the cause. Doing is the effect. When you feel aligned, grounded, optimistic, steady, you naturally take smart actions. You make better decisions. You solve problems with clarity, you communicate better, you execute more efficiently, your mind works better. Your intuition picks up details your logic misses. You access ideas you didn't know you had. But when your internal state is cluttered, stressed, anxious, overwhelmed, insecure, rushed, then everything becomes harder. You second-guess yourself. You procrastinate. You overthink. You burn out. You make sloppy decisions. You try to compensate with more effort, which only increases the internal chaos. And all of this slows down your progress more than you realize. For most of my life, I was obsessed with the doing. I genuinely thought the answer to every challenge was more action. If I wanted something badly, I would force my way toward it. I would push through roadblocks, ignore discomfort, override my emotions, suppress my stress, and convince myself that fatigue was a sign of effort. On the outside, it looked like drive. On the inside, it was self-destruction disguised as ambition. Every day felt like an argument with reality. If something didn't go the way I expected, I'd get tense. I'd tell myself, this shouldn't be happening. I'd replay mistakes in my head, stress eat my way through problems, blame myself for everything that wasn't perfect, and then try to solve it all by working harder. Even when I achieved what I wanted, the process felt like pushing a giant boulder uphill. And once I reached the top, the boulder rolled right back down the next morning. Did I make money? Yes. Did I build companies? Yes. Did I help people? Absolutely. But was I happy? No. Was I healthy? Not really. Was I living? Not even close. I was exhausted, physically, mentally, emotionally, and eventually the exhaustion caught up with me. When your being is strained long enough, the doing collapses. And that's exactly what happened. I hit burnout. My nervous system couldn't take any more pressure. My body started sending signals I'd been ignoring for years: anxiety spikes, sleep issues, irritability, emotional crashes. And because I didn't understand the relationship between being and doing, my solution was to hustle even harder. You can guess how well that worked. It finally forced me to confront a hard truth. I wasn't failing at doing. I was failing at being. That realization cracked something open in me. I started studying human behavior, psychology, neuroscience, performance science, nervous system regulation, everything. And what I discovered is that success isn't about squeezing more productivity out of yourself. It's about learning how to remove the internal resistance that's blocking your natural ability to move forward. And that began with 5 small but powerful shifts, micro techniques that completely changed the trajectory of my life. None of them are about working harder. They're about learning how to operate from the state where the right action happens naturally, efficiently, and intelligently. These 5 shifts became the foundation for how I live, work, and create today. Before I walk you through them, I want you to understand something important. Your next level is not hidden inside more effort. It's hidden inside less resistance. Now let's break down the shifts that made all the difference, starting with the one that most people don't even realize is running their life. Most people never realize that the invisible limits in their lives are not set by fate, the economy, their past, or even their environment. The limitations are woven into their identity, shaped by years of subconscious conditioning. Every belief they absorb from their parents, culture, religion, education, and even random childhood moments created a framework inside them. And once this framework solidifies, it becomes the boundary of their reality. This is why 2 people can grow up in the same home, attend the same school, and face the same world. Yet one becomes confident and expansive while the other shrinks inside their own mind. Reality is not happening out there. It is happening within the structure of consciousness. And this is precisely what Itzhak Bentov tried to explain long before the modern world was ready to hear it. He believed we live in a feedback universe. Every thought sends out a vibration. Every vibration returns as an experience. Every experience reinforces a belief, and every belief reshapes consciousness. Most people stay trapped in a loop because they don't realize that the loop is self-created. They fight their circumstances without ever questioning the blueprint that created those circumstances. This is why Bentov insisted that the true journey is not about seeking answers, but about shifting perception. A person who changes their inner narrative changes the very frequency they occupy. And the universe responds differently to a different frequency. The hidden architecture of inner reality. Bentov saw the human being not as a body with consciousness, but as consciousness temporarily using a body. To him, the brain was not a generator, but an antenna receiver, a tuning system. And the quality of one's life depended almost entirely on what they were tuned into. If you tune into fear, you see danger everywhere. If you tune into scarcity, you see lack everywhere. If you tune into possibility, the world opens itself to you. This is why transformation has nothing to do with forcing yourself into new habits or repeating affirmations you don't believe. Transformation begins when you shift the frequency of your inner state. Many people fail because they keep trying to decorate the same room instead of leaving the room altogether. They try to fix the outside while ignoring the inner pattern that keeps recreating the same results. Bentov said consciousness evolves in spirals. Whenever you resist growth, you repeat a cycle. Whenever you surrender to growth, you rise to the next loop. This is why the same lessons return, just with new faces, new situations, new forms. Life keeps repeating what you haven't mastered. And until you finally understand the message, the universe whispers it again and again, sometimes gently, sometimes with force. Consciousness isn't inside you, you're inside it. One of Bentov's most revolutionary ideas was that consciousness isn't trapped in your body. Instead, your body is floating inside a vast field of consciousness, the way a fish swims inside water. This means you are not separated from the universe. You are not isolated from possibility. You are connected to something far larger than you imagine. Every emotion sends out a ripple in the field. Every belief shapes the lens you look through. Every intention alters the probability of outcomes. This is why some people have good luck, while others have misfortune, not because of destiny, but because of energetic patterns that attract corresponding events. Bentov believed this inner field, your personal frequency, is your true home. Change that home, and every outer structure begins to rearrange. This is why some people change their environment, relationships, or career, but still feel stuck. They never updated the inner architecture. Why people feel lost on their spiritual journey. Bentov observed something fascinating. Most people who begin the spiritual path don't have a lack of wisdom. They have a lack of integration. They read books, they attend workshops, they meditate, they watch videos, they absorb knowledge. But nothing changes because their knowledge stays in the mind instead of sinking into the nervous system. Real awakening isn't intellectual, it's experiential. It's somatic, it's rooted in your entire being. This is why transformation feels uncomfortable. As consciousness expands, old patterns dissolve, identities collapse, and emotional residues rise to the surface. Bentov said people don't fear the unknown, they fear losing the familiar version of themselves. The old self wants to stay in control. The new self wants to break free. And the space in between feels like chaos. But chaos is not destruction, it is reorganization. When you feel lost, disconnected, or uncertain, you're not failing. You are transitioning, you are shedding. You are reorganizing your inner reality so a higher version of you can step forward. Bentov believed this moment, the moment when the old identity cracks, is the most sacred moment on the spiritual path. The subtle language of the universe. Bentov suggested that the universe speaks in a language most people never learn to interpret. Resonance, not logic, not words, not signs in the clouds, but resonance. You feel it in your gut before you understand it intellectually. You feel it in your heart before you can explain it. You feel it in your intuition before your mind catches up. When something is meant for you, your entire system aligns with it effortlessly. When something is not, your body tightens, your emotions resist, and your mind becomes cloudy. The universe doesn't push. It pulls. It draws you toward what matches your inner state. And this is why people who chase goals often fail. They re-pushing harder than they re-resonating. Bentov believed you don't create reality through effort. You create it through coherence. When your thoughts, emotions, beliefs, and energy match your desired reality, the universe reflects it back to you. This is the ultimate principle behind manifestation, and it aligns with modern quantum theories about coherence and probability collapse. But Bentov didn't need quantum physics to justify it. He simply understood that the universe is a mirror a perfect, non-judgmental, infinitely patient mirror. There comes a moment in every person's inner evolution when something subtle yet irreversible shifts. It doesn't arrive with enlightenment, visions, or spiritual fireworks. It arrives quietly, often in an ordinary moment when you finally become exhausted by your own patterns. Itzhak Bentov described this as the threshold of self-awareness, the point where you stop blaming the world, stop fighting reality, stop negotiating with your wounds, and simply admit, I cannot continue living from the same level of consciousness. This isn't weakness. It's a deep surrender, and surrender is the highest intelligence of the soul. In this moment, something cracks not your mind, but the shell around your mind. Your identity begins to soften, and beneath all the stories you've protected for years, you begin to feel a deeper presence within you. Something untouched, unbroken, and profoundly aware. It's the birth of the observer inside you, the part that notices your thoughts instead of drowning in them, the part that feels emotions without becoming them, the part that remembers who you truly are beyond your conditioning. According to Bentov, this shift marks the beginning of true consciousness. Not the consciousness society forces on you, but the consciousness that belongs to the universe itself. As this transformation unfolds within you, life itself begins to respond differently. You stop pushing, forcing, chasing, or begging the universe to change. Instead, opportunities start moving toward you. People treat you differently. You sense an inner clarity you never had before. Outer circumstances shift without you trying to manipulate them, because now you're operating from coherence instead of conflict, from alignment instead of desperation. Bentov believed that reality doesn't change when you demand it to, it changes when your inner frequency rises. You don't attract what you want. You attract what you are. And when your internal vibration elevates, the universe sends back experiences that match it, just like tuning your radio to a different station. This is why your old problems begin fading, your old fears loosen their grip, and the cycles you once thought were destiny simply dissolve. You are no longer living from the version of yourself that created them. But there is a phase in between, a bridge, where you stand between the old self that's dying and the new self that hasn't fully awakened. It is a strange, disorienting time. Your old life feels too small, your old habits too heavy, your old beliefs too limiting. Many people misinterpret this as failure, breakdown, or confusion, but Bentov saw it as the sacred reorganization of consciousness. Just like moving into a bigger home requires you to make a mess before you settle into the new space, expanding into a higher version of yourself requires emotional shifts, sudden clarity, unexpected endings, and powerful intuitive nudges. You may feel disconnected from who you used to be, yet not fully anchored in who you're becoming. This in-between stage is not chaos, it's transformation. The universe is rearranging your inner architecture so the next version of you can step forward. And slowly, a new self begins to emerge. A self that no longer seeks validation, no longer fears silence, no longer clings to outdated identities. You start living from the center of your being rather than from the noise around you. You trust yourself more deeply. Your intuition becomes clearer, your emotions move more freely. You attract relationships and opportunities that resonate with your new frequency. There is a calmness inside you that cannot be shaken, a knowing that does not need proof, a presence that feels connected to something far greater than your old worldview. Bentov believed that the purpose of human life is not survival, achievement, or accumulation, but the expansion of awareness. Everything you have ever experienced, every heartbreak, breakthrough, mistake, and miracle was part of your awakening. Life has never been against you. It has always been sculpting you into a more conscious being. And maybe this is the truth we've been running from, not that the universe is mysterious or that destiny is fixed, but that we are far more powerful than we ever dared to believe. You are not a small or separate being. You are not limited by your past or defined by your fears. You are consciousness itself, learning, expanding, and awakening through the story of your life. And the moment you stop living from the old frequency, the moment you tune yourself to a higher vibration, the universe rearranges itself around you. Bentov's message was simple. Reality doesn't change when you want it to. Reality changes when you do. So, if you feel something shifting within you, if your old life feels too small, if your soul is whispering that there is more, trust it. You are not breaking down. You are breaking open. And this is not the end of your story. This is the beginning of who you were always meant to become.